bring in our guest. Our guest for today, our first guest today, man. We've got the one and only Clinton Yates,
What's up,
ESPN. I'm
gang?
not
What up? What up? What up?
What's going
What's
on,
up
brother?
with it?
How you feeling?
So first of all, fam, are you married? You talking about that's for the wife? Who are you? Do you have a wife?
Oh, she was over there.
Oh, okay.
She heard me.
I was-
We have that relationship. We talk shit.
that's a great way to lose a wife. You know what I'm saying?
We have the talking shit
My
relationship.
understanding, you know.
She be
so.
popping up on here too.
Yo, there
man.
was this skit. I don't know if y'all saw it. There was a skit where a dude, I think it was on Instagram, and the dude was like, yo, you wouldn't believe it. I leave stuff on the table all night, like every night, and next morning it's magically gone. Like, try it. And the wife is looking at him like, dog, like you don't know that that's me doing
No,
it.
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah,
I
no,
haven't
me and the
changed
wife
the
has
tire
that talking.
forever, though. By the way, there's
yeah,
no
see,
chance
there
of
you
doing
go.
that anytime soon.
That's fucked up. But no, me and my wife have that talking shit relationship. So I'm probably gonna get smacked up in the head, but then she's probably gonna say something reckless too. You know what I'm saying? So
A little spice is necessary, man.
a little spice is necessary. It's Friday.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
All
saying?
right.
We
All
know
right.
what happens later.
No, I don't know. I thought this was a family show.
Oh,
I must be mistaken.
That's how you make the family.
You know what I'm saying?
That's how you get the family.
This is anything but a family show, unfortunately. This is the
I
stuff
know
we
that.
deal with.
I'm being funny.
We just still,
How we doing?
oh man, how you feeling though, bro? For those of you who are, if you've been living on the rock, you don't know who this guy is. It's Clinton Yates, man. ESPN is a panelist on Around the Horn. You know, storyteller, author. Everything. Writes great columns. Everything, man. You're doing a lot of great baseball coverage, man. This is my guy. Glad to have you on the show officially. For those of you who don't remember, he was on my interview series last summer. I'm not gonna hold you to off season. It was a great interview, man. So glad to have you on with the whole crew today. How are you feeling?
I'm good, man. My dad's actually in town. It's the first time he's come to visit me since I've moved here to California. Moved here just before the pandemic started, so it's been about 3 years now. And he used to live in Southern California though, so it's a little bit of a homecoming for him. And I'm excited about it. We've just been chilling. I took him to work yesterday. He made it on TV and saw the radio studio and everything down here. So all his church friends were hitting him up like, "Yo, what are you doing out there?" He's like, "I'm hanging out with my son. What do you think I'm doing?" You know what I mean? So it was pretty cool. So it was a good time yesterday, and he got to spend a little time with our friend Woody Page, and they're pretty much contemporaries. So, that was cool to hear a couple old guys talking about life.
Shout out to one of the icons, Woody Page, man. I used to watch Around the Horn. I always say salute to like Around the Horn, PTI, man. Those are stuff that made me want to, do this thing when I was a kid. I would come home, it'd be PTI, Around the Horn, Sports Center, Rap City, 106 and Park. That was my daily viewing before Mama told me, "All right, turn TV off. Turn TV off, do your homework." That's the time I had.
In college, so I'm a little older than you guys. So I was in college when the show came out. And we used to call it church, Around the Horn and PTI. So you text your roommates, "You're gonna be home for church?" Like, what's going on? Like, we're watching church. So that was what we call it.
I miss falling asleep to like the ESPN news, like and then waking up and just seeing it say like that was just the most beautiful background note like ever. It was just perfect.
That's how I woke up to that ass whooping last night. I was asleep and I woke up like, yo, what happened?
I thought it was Photoshop. I thought Twitter was doing the thing that Twitter do, and they put the score up because they was just like, oh, the Chargers losing, so let's just exaggerate.
Right, somebody's making something up.
I'm like, somebody's making something up. So I went I was like, you know what? Let me just go double check before I say anything. And I went and checked and said, no, this is really happening.
I mean, it was 42 zap at half, right?
Like, it
wasn't,
the only reason it still stayed on my TV is because I was preparing for the show. I was going to do this background noise.
In case something crazy happened.
It turned into homework at that point.
Yeah, they had O'Connell looking like Brady, man. But well, man, you're DC native, man. I'm gonna go give it to my man Bang. Spent a lot of time in DC. For first time we're gonna go over.
Yeah, shouts out to Radio 1 DC, 93.9 WKYS, Magic 102.3, 92.7, the real sign of DMV, and all of those stations. I also spent a little time when we had brought TEM, and working with a lot of those guys over there, and having conversations about sports and stuff, and like hearing all of the stuff that's going on out there in DC, in the district about the Wizards and the Caps moved to Potomac Yards over there in Northern Virginia. Like, is this is this really going to happen, or is folks just talking to try to leverage Mayor Bowser to try to give up the money that they need to do what they need to do in the district?
There's a couple of things at play here. The folks that are talking are Theodore Leontis himself. So you can't just say folks in that regard, because the guy owns both teams, including the Mystics, by the way, which is another discussion in this that we'll get to later. But I mean, I think it's about as real as Ted wants it to be, which is, I don't frankly think is that real, but I do think there's a bluff call element to this. And if I was the city, I would call their bluff. I'd lock the doors. Tony Kornheiser talked about that a little bit on PTI, and you guys might have heard me ranting about it yesterday about how this is kind of a despicable move. But there's this thing that happens that I'm never going to understand, which is that when an owner acts like they need something, all of a sudden people have this bizarre desire to acquiesce to the most vicious capitalists we know and be like, well, he should be allowed to do whatever he wants. He's the one who brought the team or whatever. And you're like, hold on a second. Are you rooting for a guy to make money, or are you rooting for a fan experience that you're going to enjoy? Because let me tell you something, often they are mutually exclusive, and everybody's kind of convinced themselves that for whatever reason, a franchise raking in more cash gets you closer to whatever proverbial promised land that you're looking for. And this is one of those cases where there's just no world where I could see anybody defending them leaving downtown DC. There just isn't one. I mean, I get it if you're brainwashed by society to the point that you think that anybody who's got enough money should basically be allowed to run rampant over any sort of societal, I don't want to say moral imperatives, but, public trusts, then yeah. But for the most part, never trust a billionaire, man. You're not going to get rich. You'll never be in that position. You don't have to worry about defending that class. Trust me, Joe Blow from Bowie, who doesn't know, a left tackle from a right guard. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And I think a lot of people, out of what they feel is some sort of loyalty to their own team, don't understand how easy it is to be sort of played as a pawn being a fan of American sports. And I mean that for any city, but in DC, it's got a particular flavor because of where basketball, as a sport in the town, and the way that franchise has been so terrible for literally my entire life. So it's a weird situation, but it's not an easy one at all.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask next. Like, do the people really care? I remember being, talking to the guys, and I mean, of course, it's always Redskins / Commanders first, then it's Caps. And for me, coming from Chicago and moving out to DC, I mean, I know Bears is king out here, and then you got the Cubs and all of that stuff, but we still love our Bulls. And if somebody tried to move them from the west side of Chicago, I think everybody will riot, even though it's like dangerous as hell where the Bulls play. So, like, do the people really care about the Wizards staying in that area?
What the Wizards represent is basketball in the area. And look, I mean, they've never won 50 games in my life. So what people care about by definition does not look the same way that it does for other NBA franchises. DC is a basketball town, Wizards aside. We turn out more pros, college players, men and women.
Shouts out to PG County.
You know what I'm saying? In terms of the area, the metro area, than a lot of other big cities, and people don't realize that. So what the Wizards represent, don't forget the Hoyas play there too. What the Wizards represent is the sort of mecca of basketball as a sport in general. Them being competitive is not really something people have worried about because, that guy has owned the team for so long and everybody knows he's not serious. But that's a different matter than saying that, well, people don't care enough to show up, therefore removing them from where they are makes sense. There's a couple things there. Number one, downtown DC, there was a pandemic. Last time I checked, that hit everybody. So for the downturn in business and so forth that's hit downtown and be blamed singularly on just the ubiquitous concept of crime in DC, which don't get me started about how ignorant that sounds.
I'm with you.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just larger issues. And the whole point to me of what an owner can be, not necessarily what they have to do, is that, people trust you for your product. That's something that's entertaining. Therefore, the consistency of said product, at least in terms of play, is important. I mean, you look at how hard Commanders fans are fighting to get the team back into the city. It's because of A, the nostalgia factor, and B, I think people just connect to whatever that site is more. Potomac Yards is like not a place, bro. Like, my buddy used to live out there. We never visited him because it was just weird to get to, and not just because of the metro. It's like, you got to go to the airport, and then you got to like be next to that. It's just, it's actually kind of stunning to me that Ted would even think that anybody would like this at all. The only people defending it are people who are, again, bootlickers for those that have a lot of money, because even if this were for the right reasons, it would be a stupid move, in my personal opinion. And that's why it's so baffling. It feels like there's a certain level of, I don't want to say vengeance, but you did all that talk about being in a community, all that talk comparing yourself to Martin Luther King, blah, blah, blah. You can go look that up. You know what I mean?
That's a wild comparison.
You know what I mean? You're just like, how, if that's how you actually feel, all this breaking out boundary stone courts for the district hashtags, and then you just threaten to go to Virginia? Like, nah, bro, that's not how anything rocks. And it's almost, I almost am kind of embarrassed for him, because it's such a naked cash grab that indicates such a level of greed that people, your fan base can't evaporate. It happens. Yeah. Ask Daniel M. Snyder. People loved that team. People used to go to the place, moved out of town, place started to suck, team started to suck. All of a sudden, they can't fill it to save their lives. Just a bizarre thing to watch unfold in real time if you actually give a shit about basketball in DC.
And I think, kind of a slight comparison, because we would even been kind of like rumors of Jay Reinsdorf moving the White Sox away. And we know just, I feel like the number of White Sox fans really gets like underrated. And there's some people like they take love on me personally. I'm boycotting the White Sox right now. I just refuse to, watch the mediocre, they've won a World Series in my time, but like I can name the season where they didn't make the playoffs until it's like, I'll go somewhere. I'll watch the Dodgers. I've been there long enough. So I definitely understand how, the unrest from, fan bases can be. But let's pivot a little bit, man. Let's go to baseball, which is something that, you're real big on, man. You just, you did a lot of coverage. You did the playoffs. You got the World Series from the IG. You were at the Ohtani, the press conference yesterday.
Yeah, I was there yesterday.
Tell me how that experience was, and just really how this whole Ohtani saga has been. We touched on it last Friday. My guys Mikey and Courtney. And by the way, Courtney said you what up.
What up?
She said, we were talking about like kind of like the racist coverage that we felt happened with Ohtani. But just talk about the Ohtani pursuit and just a big week the Dodgers had. They just traded for Tyler Glass now today too.
They did. They finalized that extension with him too. So I was in Nashville all week, whatever week that. I guess it was last week. Yeah, we're at the end of this week, so it would have been effectively 2 weeks ago now, for the winter meetings, and nothing happened there. Dave Roberts, the Dodgers manager, made a lot of noise because he was like, yeah, we talked to him. What about it? After all this kind of shakeup had been made about if anybody leaks anything, well, then this not happening. And so I kind of appreciated Dave for at least having the stones to stand up for his own team, never mind his franchise, and just say, yeah, we talked to the guy and we want him. We would be stupid if we didn't. So that was cool. But I do think there's a part of this whole thing that it's really tough because, yeah, you can say that because he's Japanese, because he's private, that there are certain societal things that are just not going to fly the same way. But I don't think that makes all criticism of Shohei Ohtani being quite high maintenance as racist. I really don't. I mean, like, let's think about what happened when he was with the Angels. They let him do whatever he want. Pitch whenever he want, talk to whenever he want, hit whenever he want, worked out whenever he wanted, and recovered from injuries however he wanted. They enabled a certain level of secrecy beyond privacy that I think by default, when you go from a team like the Halos to the Dodgers, changes. And I think that's part of the reason why, you're making so much money. And so, again, there's two sides to every discussion. And it's always odd to me when people are sort of act as if, well, they can do whatever they want. Well, yeah, but at the same time, nobody has to like that. And doesn't necessarily mean that having a problem with it means you have a problem with who they are. It just means you don't like it. And I do think that there is some, maybe not among Dodger fans, because Dodger fans are really more in the business of just celebrating themselves. A lot of LA sports fans are like that, like regardless of what's actually happening with the team, they don't necessarily know or care a ton about sports. They're just kind of like being in the place to root for a team that's expected to do well as much as one that actually does. And so amongst Dodger fans, you might not see a ton of that. But I do think that there is a bit of a feeling around baseball that's kind of like, all right, already, you're going to be 30 by the time this season ends. We'd like to know a little bit more about you. And there's nothing wrong with that, because by the same token with which we say that baseball doesn't market its stars well enough, nobody thinks that baseball players are cool, the popularity level, blah, blah, blah. Well, when the most popular player on earth refuses to talk to people, it kind of creates a catch-22. So I think there is some level of not responsibility, but it would just be cool to know more about this guy. I think for everybody's sake, because I mean, ultimately, you're playing a game. It's not really that serious. So, open up and maybe more people will like you. Maybe it won't matter, but I do think that there is something to be said for his personality is going to make a lot of difference as to his popularity over the next 10 years. Maybe not worldwide, but certainly stateside.
Well, that's a good point. I didn't think about it either. Like as far as like wanting more for him, because I feel like a lot of some media, not all, some give it we pay you, we pay your bills. You're supposed to say that, or some would say, oh well, you're in our country, you have to say that. So I think it was a mix of both. But I definitely understand that perspective. Let's talk about.
Don't get me wrong, Scott. Hold quickly. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that came incorrect on that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to imply that everybody operates in the best faith, whether they even know that or not. I just personally think that there is something beyond just the cultural, I don't want to say hurdle, but the cultural difference that is kind of about like, this could just be more fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be about obligation. You seem to be a pretty fun guy. Why don't we engage in some more things that people like instead of acting like everything is so dead serious all the time?
I definitely understand, man. That's a good perspective on it. Let's talk about on the field. What do you think that, I mean, obviously this is a team that is stacked, with Mookie Betts. They got Freddie Freeman just for the hell of it. Then you add Ohtani to this, and this is a team that they have no problem spending money. And no disrespect to the Angels, but you've been in LA for a couple years. I've been in LA for a couple years. The Angels are truly Orange County's team. Nobody in actual Los Angeles County cares about the Angels, so it's different when he's on this team. What do you think from a baseball perspective Ohtani and even Glasnow brings them, because now they've got the pitching element to it, which was something that you could say one of the main reasons they went home early last year?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about pitching, we're not talking about Ohtani because he ain't pitching.
Yeah,
so
exactly
that's a big question mark that I think a lot of people kind of conveniently chose to, I don't want to say ignore, but overlook. I mean, double Tommy John surgery, or as he put it, a surgery that he's never had before. He wouldn't say Tommy John, which is weird. But do we know that he's ever going to pitch again? No,
we don't know.
In fact,
for
don't.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I don't even really necessarily look at Ohtani as an arm being added to the roster until I see it. I mean, and that's not a knock on him. There's just no reason to do so. As for him as a bat, $70 million a year for a DH is a lot of money, Scott. And I realize that money is for more than baseball, and I realize he's taking a deferred contract, but I, in fact, think that Glasnow's a great pickup because they need the innings anyway. They had so many injuries on that staff last year, between Kershaw always being sort of iffy, Walker Buehler going down, Dustin May having yet another Tommy John. They'll have multiple double Tommy John guys on the staff, which I don't like either. The pitching is the most important thing for this team. Ohtani's a nice add. I would bat him lead off personally because he's a left-handed bat, so you can go left, right, left at the top. But I mean, if you think that Shohei Ohtani puts the Dodgers that much closer to winning the World Series, I'm not so sure about that. That's not to say he's not good. I just think that what they needed in the playoffs last year was a different type of a player. This helps, you know what I mean? It helps sell seats. It helps draw fan base, but his OPS is the best on the team. He's one of the best. He's arguably the best hitter in the league. But I just don't know that that's going to be the piece. I think the pitching is more important. I think they need sort of a grittier guy lower in the lineup, although Ohtani is going to be a great addition just from a general baseball standpoint to that team.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely, bro. Now, obviously, Shohei, he was the big fish of free agency. We saw Soto go over to the Yankees. What are some other moves we should be looking out for? Obviously, we still waiting to see what happens with Yamamoto, Cody Bellinger. Those are two of the really bigger names left. What are some moves we can look out for?
Dylan Cease is another guy as an arm who you guys should know, obviously, from his time in Chicago. I mean, Cody Bellinger is an interesting case because former Dodger, because he had a breakout year with the Cubs. And I couldn't see us, rather. They tend to want to be pretty good. Like, I would be very surprised if he chose to leave Chicago after the sort of comeback year that he had. I don't do a ton of like breaking hot stove stuff. And my brain is kind of fried. So the people you named are actually arguably the biggest. Soto is an interesting one as well because of New York and what the outfield situation is. Like, where is he going to play? Where is everybody else going to play? And how are they going to work that out? So I think we're getting into that portion of the hot stove where now that Shohei is signed, we're going to see a lot more dominoes fall. It's just a matter of where. I can't remember the guy's name now, but the Giants signed him, the outfielder. He looks to be a good pickup. But we're at that point now where it's like we got to see the baseball. You know what I mean? And that doesn't come for another 100 days. I can't count like that, but yeah, I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready for spring training to start just to see what some guys can do. Hot stove interests a lot of people, sort of like how NBA transaction Twitter interests a lot of people. It doesn't interest me that much because I like to see what people can actually do, not just worry about what could be here and there. And that's not a knock on the question or anything like that. I'm just saying that like I'm about time to see somebody, throw and catch as opposed to just worry about what contracts they sign.
I definitely get that, man.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked a little bit about baseball and everything, but I do kind of want to switch a little bit to football.
Yeah,
and you cover some Colorado games this year, and I think it's easy in a vacuum to just look at the record and say, all right, 4-8, it is what it is. But overall, to you, how do you gauge this season? Like, was this a success? How do you look at it? What's your perspective on Colorado this season?
I wrote a column about this, and I said it was a success, if for no other reason than to the last minute of the last game at home in Boulder, people were there. People showed up, and people stayed in the park, even as they were losing, and people cheered on the team. When it comes to success in college football, there's so many different ways that different programs define themselves, whether it's playoff appearances, conference titles, trophies won, and I don't just mean Heisman's, or bowl appearances. Those four things alone have very different sort of paths to get there. And I think that Prime and them, sidebar, I'm actually wearing my Buffs hat.
There we go.
I was like, wait a second. I might have this hat on right now. So Prime and them, hold on. I think Prime and them left it sort of intentionally vague once they won those first 3 games of the year, because that alone on momentum was enough to justify sort of proof of concept, you know what I mean? And after that, it was kind of like real football. And the only real kind of mistake I think Prime made this year in terms of what I would call a macro mistake was when he called out the offensive line, because a lot of that offensive line were like the only guys that stayed on that team in terms of continuity from the last program. And I know there was all the comments about Louis luggage and this, that, and the third, but like those dudes still had games to play. And one of the people I met, one of the offensive linemen who did say, I met his grandfather. And, when I was in Boulder as just, journalizing as part of the story. And he was like, dude, that hurt my grandkid so bad. He said, like, that dude stayed around and, he wanted to be there. And it's one thing to suck. It's one thing to know that you're not good. It's another thing to have your coach come out week 9 or whatever it was out of a 12, 13-week season and be like, yeah, you're all gone, and still have to play the season. So I know he's got recruiting classes. I know he's getting guys back, but that was the only time where I felt like that felt a little unnecessary. Other than that, yeah, these guys are making money. People are watching the games. People in Boulder who don't necessarily even have anything to do with Colorado, like they didn't go there, they just live there. They go to games. Like, I don't really know how much better of a turnaround. I could probably have some better stats. Like, for teams that fired their coach after less than 5-win seasons last year, or whatever the year before was, I think Prime still had the most wins of the new coaches who took on a situation like that. So relative to what the scenario was, yeah, pretty successful. But the dagger was the 7 in a row. I think that's what really hurt. It was like every time you looked up, Colorado was losing.
Right.
That was tough to see. The record overall was one thing, but after that hot start, I was talking to Cordell Stewart after the SC game, and he was like, yeah, we're making a bowl. Like, it was a given. Didn't happen. And so that Stanford game really kind of changed their season. I think really kind of reestablished what it takes for Deion's teams to win in big time D1 football. We'll see what happens when they go to the Big 12, harder conference.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, harder conference. The 12 team playoff hits next year too, so maybe that'll help them out a little bit, man.
Sure,
anything else you want to say before we get you up out of here, man? I know you got.
Nah, man, I be seeing y'all social clips. Y'all be out here cussing and dropping N-bombs. I wish I had the freedom to do that on a microphone. But, you know what I'm saying? That's not how we're living these days. But yeah, man, keep it up. Scott, we got to hang out at some point, man. I ain't seen you enough out here.
I will be back, and once I get done covering the Bears, so I'll be back first week of January.
Yo, the Bears. So hold on. Okay, so let me tell you something. I heard what you were talking about at the beginning of the show. And the Bears are a prime example of what I say all the time on TV, which is that quarterback is the worst coach position in the league by a mile. By a mile. And it's so obvious. And the Bears haven't had a plan. And I don't just mean not finding the right guy, but like this particular subset of humans that has been at the forefront of the offensive situation for the Bears for the last 3-4 seasons, even with the changes, bruh, no plan. Like, I don't care if your plan fails, but it's seemingly everybody's pitted against each other to say, oh, well, it didn't work out. Yo, not a good situation. I feel bad for Justin Fields.
And I ain't gonna say nothing. I ain't gonna say nothing about no Bears because Scott has been very. I'm shocked I'm here. I'm shocked I'm on edge. I thought I was gonna get fired today.
But I'm saying, I'm not trying to throw shade. I'm just saying,
you're telling the truth.
Of a lot of teams that just have no idea what they're doing.
I'm gonna tell you what's crazier than that, though. His quarterback went to that school that shall not be named because we 3-0 against them in the last 3 years. You know, whatever.
Okay.
But I feel bad for him. I don't feel bad for guys that went to that school that get to the league and don't. But I feel terrible for him because I like him. I want him to be good. Like I really do. And I'm just like, damn, man. Like
speaking of that school, I heard a rumor that Caleb Williams might transfer to Ohio State instead of going pro. So. Just saying.
I'll say this. Hey, and that's the one thing I'll say too. Caleb Williams, like they'll ruin him too if they bring him there. And we almost had to unveil.
That's not reporting, by the way. That's just me. Not reporting. That's just me talking. Okay, I'm not.
That's why I'm laughing my ass off.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Ohio State starting running back Chip Trainum, who came from ASU, transferred to Kent State this week. Think about that in terms of what kind of offense they might be running. He's from Akron, but yeah.
I almost unveiled Bang and our other co-host Mikey. He's not here. I don't know. He might be kidnapped. So I don't know what Mikey is. Allegedly, he's coming back first week of January.
Free Mikey, man.
All right, boys. I got to get back to the beach. It is great to see you. Keep up the good work, fellas.
All right, my brother.
Hey. All right, y'all. Late.
Paper on this player, haters, old news, money on the other line, so I'm not gonna hold you. Money on the other line, so I'm not gonna